John Frost looked on the gathered crowd, now 3,000 strong. With heavy heart, his voice rang loud as he sang this loveless song. God is a guide from field, from wave, from plough, from anvil, and from loom. We come our country's rights to save and speak a tyrant faction's doom. We raise the watchword liberty. We will be free. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament comes crashing down with Robert's Rules of Order. And bobbies took an oath to be our nation's warders, swearing that they would enforce Sir Robert's Rules of Order. To Newport rose a million friends who rallied each supporter to join this flood of working men against Robert's Rules of Order. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament comes crashing down with Robert's Rules of Order. Like this, on the steps of Parliament, John Frost stood proud and tall. A hush fell on this great event as he told them one and all, depose the gentry and the crown, depose the House of Lords, or join the Queen in exile by Robert's Rules of Order. So Chartists, Luddites, Communists, recall each faithful martyr who died so you could have your new world Robert's Rules of Order. Say it loud, vote your favor, shout it high. All in favor, you say aye. Favor, aye, favor. Aye. A mandate of the people's cry. Favor, aye, favor. Aye. Let's hear the opposition side. Like a stubborn donkey's bray. All opposed, you say nay. Opposed, opposed. The motion carries anyway. As currents change and bring to us our dear corrupted warder, in chains subdued and ill-abused, he's left with no supporters. Mobility's will can then proceed by our own rules of order, and we'll all cheer for country's sake when Robert's drawn in quarter. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament shall be reborn with Robert's Rules of Order.
Oh, so it caught me looking at my phone.
Mine down a second or two before it flipped.
Oh no, but somebody posted a meme with the Gulf of 9/11 was an inside job. Okay, so tonight was a night of parliamentary adventure. We did that class again, except for we enjoyed this one. I think. Well, I enjoyed it. I'm speaking for you like we're married, but some people think we are.
Yeah, I know. We are happily married to other people.
Yes. Mike and I are very happily married to other people.
Yes. Despite what some people may think. Anyway, no, I was actually out of part of it because I was dealing with a state XCOM meeting at the same time. We were discussing our proposed convention rules for our upcoming 50th anniversary state convention. But so I was in and out for a little bit of that, and then the rest of it is dealing with other stuff involving the judicial committee. So I was kind of half paying attention.
You should come down to the Colorado convention so you can yell at them.
If I were to walk in there, three things would happen. One, people would have heart attacks. Two, people would crap their pants. And three, they try to throw me out.
But like, we need you yelling at somebody. It's the Colorado Springs Massacre.
Is that where they're holding it this year?
I'm not sure. I think it's going to be at the Shriners again. That was actually a nice facility.
It was a good facility. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So. I'm not sure because I'm not salty or anything, but like there's nothing on the website or any announcements. So
no.
We have a date. That's all I know. They probably said the announcement in the meeting and I just didn't catch it. I mean, the location. It's just going to be a one-day convention. I know that.
Even with all the stuff they want to screw out the bylaws?
No idea. Non-communicative, so no idea. Anyway, so tonight's ParliaPrep, was Kay Cruz, who's quite famous in the parliamentary community. And I think she's done work for LP things before. I had heard of her.
If I heard correctly, she's actually not too far from me up in Huntsville here.
No, she's in Texas.
Thought I heard her mention about she still had some things going on up here too. So
no, because she was mentioning how she incorporated her business in Texas for 2 reasons: because she lived there and because it was business friendly.
Okay.
Yeah, she's in Texas. I'm not sure where. So the topic tonight might not be something necessarily our listeners are terribly interested in, but maybe they would be. I was really interested in it, and it was. She works full time and makes her living as a parliamentarian. And wasn't there somebody on a prior ParliaPrep or what? Or was it? No, it was one of those unit meetings where I had told you about it, where the person made a living doing HOA stuff.
Yeah, I remember that because I grimaced when I heard that, knowing how I've had to deal with HOAs both as a board member and as a parliamentarian for them in my own time.
But it's lucrative. Yeah, it's lucrative.
It's a lucrative evil.
Yeah, so, well, we're in politics, Mike. Can we really talk?
Okay.
Fair. You got to go. Fair point. So I found it interesting, the nuts and bolts that she talked about, and the fact that she makes a living doing it, because I've made no secret of the fact that I'm viewing, all of the learning as potentially a part-time, at least paid gig as I get older. I mean, I know I'm an old lady already.
Insert plug for pink parliamentarian here.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I've got that. I don't really do that much here, but anyway, yeah. So I found it really, really interesting. And one thing I realized I need to do, even for these volunteer gigs I do, is an engagement letter. But, right now it's what states I've worked with a bunch of times, but have clear expectations. So I thought that was a really good idea, though I'll tell you, it's not necessarily for parliamentary services, but just to even provide any kind of services for the Florida convention. They have a contract they have you sign. They're actually, they handle their conventions very professionally.
Yeah, the last one I did in Colorado, it wasn't really a formal contract per se. We just kind of had I don't want to say a handshake agreement, but it was informal enough. I think it was over an email that we figured it out. But
I'm gonna write up something.
Everybody stuck to it, so it was cool.
Yeah, but she had some really good ideas about choice of law and limitation of damages and things like that. But one thing she had mentioned was the liability insurance. And I've bought that for 3 years now. It's only like, I think it was $110 a year.
Not bad.
Yeah, through AIM. But I think you have to be an RP or PRP to get it. I don't know, but I know they ask you that. So it's probably different rates depending upon
probably
credentials and things
level.
like that. Yeah.
But
so we learned something new tonight that I don't agree with, but my agreement is not necessary. You probably saw me in chat, is that the professional responsibility code is applied just to NAP members, not just credentialed members.
That surprised me. That surprised me a lot.
Yeah, I think that's kind of crazy pants. In a way.
Well, they also made the comment that people can claim themselves to be a parliamentarian without the PRP or PRP cert, and I'm not sure I agree with that either.
Well, remember,
and I say that as someone still trying to get that straightened out.
Well, Richard brought this up, so I don't mind saying it. But when he was first retained by the LP, he wasn't an RP. So in 2016 and 2018, he wasn't an RP. He was by 2020.
Huh. I did not realize that.
Yeah, no, he'll tell you that. It might have been before 2018 that he got it, but in 2016 he definitely was not, because
Huh.
we had talked about that. So I could see that code perhaps being applied to an NAP member that is actually working. But what if
Yeah.
you're not working? And I'm not so sure I even agree to it being applied to an NAP member who's not working. So to me, that now let's have a little bit of libertarian talk. We really believe in voluntary certification, so I think it's great
Absolutely.
that there isn't licensure. You have these voluntary
Yeah.
certifications. So what's the incentive to the consumer side to actually seek someone with a credential besides them you being assured they know what they're doing, but it can
Yeah.
also come with the added benefit that they're bound by these certain rules and you will have recourse. And that gives you the incentive to choose someone with a credential rather than someone without a
Right.
credential.
And that's all private, all well and good. But the question really here is that if you don't have the credential, but you're just a member, why would that situation apply if you're not in that boat yet?
Right. And you know that the membership exam for NAP, I mean, if you're someone who has decent experience with meetings, you can pass it.
Yeah, but it never discloses anything about the ethics thing and the professional
Yeah,
responsibility part in that entrance exam. It
I
never
never
does.
knew that. I know, and it probably
Matter
says
of
on
fact,
there.
I didn't know about it until the first cut at the actual RP exam was where it came up.
Yeah, and it probably says it like really clearly on there. You know the way the human mind is when you're expecting something to say something, that's what it says. Like, and your eyes
Yeah,
just skip over. Like,
you're predisposed to it. Yeah,
yeah, um, like I assumed, and I told you about this before, and I could have sworn this was told to me, but obviously it wasn't. But like my memory is still that was told to me, and I think it's because like when you and I come at problems, we can't take the LP experience out of the way we look at it. So we're importing all kinds of assumptions from the LP. And there was a past ParliaPrep that said that you got to be careful not to import customs
right.
and assumptions if you're really involved with another group. So, like with the professional responsibility things, I always assumed like if somebody filed a complaint against somebody and then the other person responded, that the response would be sent to the original complainer or whatever you call it, complainant. It's not. But you want to know why I think that? Because that's how the judicial committee on the LP works.
Right.
All the
Right.
documents are exchanged. It's not that way with NAP. So you got to be really careful about importing in your presuppositions.
Which begs the question: how do you know then if you have a complaint against you?
No, they'll send it to you. Um,
Okay.
and you respond, but your response doesn't get sent to the original complainer. So they don't
Okay.
know what your defense was.
Aha.
And perhaps that's for the better because as a JC member, you know that everybody getting everything kind of starts a snowball effect of responses to replies to responses to replies, and everyone just
Uh-huh.
feels like, and
Uh-huh.
listen, I'm
Uh-huh.
guilty of it too. So like there's
Well,
a few
it gets to a point. I'm not going to name any names, but it's like, would you
I'll
just
name
please shut
me.
up already? I'm
Go
not
ahead.
naming names, but I'm just simply saying it gets to a point where, like, especially when it comes a back and forth between two people, I'm like, would you please just shut up already? You're
You
not
can
helping
go ahead
yourself.
and say one of them is me.
I'm trying to be political. I'm trying to be diplomatic here because there's a lot of people who do it.
Yeah, but I do.
I'm probably guilty of it on the JC thread myself. So
So yeah. Um anyway, so I thought that was super interesting. Are you planning on any day like doing a business thing?
I thought about it. I mean, judging from the numbers of RPs and PRPs in this state, and there's a few, I mean, there's actually a couple dozen in the area, believe it or not. So the potential's there, especially because this area is the fastest growing part of the state right now. But at the same time, I also see something else as a potential. There, the place I work, and I'm not going to name who they are. Um, I don't think they have very many RPs in their massive level of staff, and that I think is a flag I can hang out within internally that might get some attention of some upper level people to say, "Hey, wait a second, we have one of these in house. Wait a minute, let's bring him in." So there may be some career expansion opportunities in that respect too.
Well, I know it certainly helped in my paralegal job when we have cases in which minutes have to be reviewed and things like that.
Sure, sure.
You know, but not very often, but it has a bit when there's been a
That can help.
governmental
Yeah.
agency or school board,
Yeah.
school board issues. And Greg says hi. So yeah, I
Hi,
thought
Greg.
all of that was really interesting, and the ethical quandaries she brought up is real interesting, and it's certainly, as you get more experience, you think about those things a bit more. And
Sure.
I'm starting to think now you err much more on the side of caution. So, for instance, about a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago, I would have said that if some local political party that wasn't the LP wanted
Yeah.
someone from the outside to assist with their convention or whatever, that I'd be totally open to that work. And now I would say no. As long as I'm on the LNC, I'm not going to do any
Sure.
of that.
Well,
I'm
no,
not going to.
that's understandable on that because of your position, and currently with mine, it'd be the same way. But if you're not in that position, then it's different
Right.
argument.
When
And
I'm not
when
on
you
the
when you first
LNC.
get when you first got the cert and you're just getting established, you want to take the jobs as much as you can just to help build up the resume,
Yeah.
build up the experience, and build up the reputation and the word of mouth as to and the advertising. So
Yeah. But
you
I
got to
would,
put yourself out there, really.
because there actually was an opportunity through the local unit. It was Jefferson County Republican Party needed a convention. I think they thought they were going to, county party actually, thought that they were going to have a contentious, from what I could reading between the lines. It didn't say that, but reading between the lines. And it was so tempting to apply for that. But I'm like, no, as long as I'm on the LNC, I'll do work for state parties, but
Yeah,
not any other political party. Once
yeah.
I'm off the LNC.
Yeah, you're not politically independent enough in this case.
Yeah. And I might learn something, like I was saying in the meeting today. You can't, and in a way I agreed with Kay, but in a way I didn't agree with Kay. So what I was getting with, and this maybe comes from my law firm practice, not as a lawyer, but paralegal, working with law firm practices. Let me word that better. That when I said you can't unlearn what you already know, and sure, she was correct, that doesn't mean you have to disclose it. That isn't what I meant. Obviously, you can't disclose it, but you
Right.
can't keep it from influencing you. You can't. It's a part of you now. You can't not have that knowledge influence
You can't
you.
turn it off. Yeah.
Right.
You can't turn it off.
That could potentially be to the detriment of your current client or a former client. So say I did apply and get that job with the Jefferson County Republicans. What if I learned something that could be used to the advantage of the Libertarian Party of Colorado? You can't unlearn that.
Yeah.
So
you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. Yeah. Gregory has a comment in chat.
Oh, Gregory says he feared his letter of engagement would scare off some clients, but it hasn't. Yeah, I think everyone loves clear expectations. Like some of the issues that came up tonight was where Richard Brown had said, if you're a convention parliamentarian, can you advise members? I can tell you that my mind on that kind of flip-flops back and forth. I could tell you that I used to be really strong, and I still lean this way, which is the opposite opinion of Richard, is that the chair has to have utmost confidence in you, and you're the advisor to the chair. You're not an advisor to the membership. And
which
also
is why you have floor parliamentarians
right.
versus the convention parliamentarian. Yeah, because the convention parliamentarian is put into play by who? The chair. So
right.
Not
And
the members.
the members might be trying to remove the chair, or there's lots of things that could be going on.
Lots of pieces going on.
Yeah, particularly since we're involved in politics. So there's always political shenanigans going on. But there was that issue of the national parliamentarian that said she talked about the parliamentary open house or whatever, where she'd be available for questions. And it suggested doing that, but to have a sign up that said, anything said here is not in confidence. And if the parliamentarian learns something that might be going on later in the convention, it's their duty to tell the chair.
Right. It's open game, yeah.
Right. And
so,
that
I want to detour back a second though, because Gregory's chat comment is a good one. He mentioned that his letter of engagement would scare off some clients, but it hasn't. Okay, let's go down a rabbit hole here, and let's talk about what exactly is a letter of engagement. I think that's an important detail here. So I wasn't totally catching part of that in the ParliaPrep because I was ducking between things. What exactly are we talking about here?
So I saw one. What did I see one for? I think anyway, I've seen a few. It outline like what, if you're working for a flat fee, it will outline what's included in it. And if there's like a maximum hours cap, and like say you're going to be convention parliamentarian and it's a flat rate, you say it includes your attendance at the convention, 4 hours of pre-convention consultation with committee chairs and the convention chair, or whatever.
So it's like hey, this is who I am. This is what I'll do. This is what I charge.
Yes. And that anything over and above this will be at this rate. And it'll say travel will be covered, maybe up to a certain amount. Meals will be covered, maybe up to a certain amount. It might have been Richard Brown's that I've seen as being on the convention committee before. That would make sense. I know I've seen some letters of engagement, and they weren't ones I've signed. So,
ditto here.
Nope. I did sign one. I know and one might have been Richard Brown, but I hired Birch Balch for that court case, and I signed a letter of engagement with him.
Okay.
So, but that might not have been his for. Well, I doubt it was for every type of case. It was one for bylaws review and writing an opinion.
Sure. Yeah, and it sounds like you could work that into, if you have your own website for your parliamentary business, you could almost put that up there as almost like a menu of options for what you do too. In its own way.
On Pink Parliamentarian, I do have rates and daily and hourly and all of that, but of course those can be negotiable for longer periods of time. But I actually need to. Yeah, I need to write out a contract, though. I think even for these volunteer gigs, I need to write out a contract, a letter of engagement, basically, which I hadn't done before.
Yeah, whereas W.C. Fields once said, "We know what you are, and now we're negotiating price."
Yes. So I'm going to do that for the next one. Again, my next... I think I'm doing Pennsylvania. The reason why I say I think they have certain rules where it required a board vote for certain things, and that hadn't happened yet, but I think they had a meeting yesterday, so I'm not positive about that. But Florida, I've already signed their contract, so I'm definitely doing Florida.
I knew about that.
But in the future, I'm going to come up with one. So tonight really made me think of that. So
far nobody's called me about conventions at all. So
those are the only Yeah, the only two I got called about, but I've actually, after that one lady, I know you're just going to think I'm a glutton for punishment. I've downloaded all of the Colorado HOA laws and stuff because I'm going to start reading that
You
because
downloaded Kiowa? Oh my God, you have my utmost sympathy.
so
I know what that's involved. I used to have a copy of it. It is terrible.
but I think that could be a lucrative a field. So I just haven't had time.
Assuming you don't tear your hair out over it. God,
I definitely am not going to be.
that drove me nuts a few years ago. Believe me.
Well, you might not know this, but I started my legal career when I was a secretary before I finished my degree in paralegal studies. I was a legal secretary with a homeowners association firm. So it was in Florida, but I'm really
Yeah.
familiar with all the codes and was constantly looking at declarations and covenants, which is basically bylaws. And maybe that's
Yes,
why the parliamentary stuff just
it is.
appealed to me because I was already so used to looking at decks and
Right.
covenants.
In my HOA, I rewrote our bylaws and our covenants completely. So, but the state Kiowa, which is the Colorado Common Interest Community Act, or whatever the hell that acronym works out to be, it is literally several hundred, well, not 100 pages long, but it's quite thick, and there's a whole lot of stuff in there, and a lot of it's regulations about about managers for an HOA, or
Mm-hmm.
in lieu of the board doing things or things like that. And there's also some restrictions on what you can and can't do as covenants and some other details like that, and declarants and God knows what. It's highly complex. And when I went through it for our HOA, it seemed like about 80% of it didn't apply to us because we didn't have the specific regs that in our situation didn't apply. So the challenge there is going through it and figuring out, does this apply? Does this apply? Does this apply? And how, if it does? So
And
it's crazy.
well, after the HOA firm, I did insurance defense for multiple decades. And we did a lot of cases where the insurance company, and I worked for the evil empire. I worked for the insurance company, where it was claims by master associations. So you had to read the law because in Florida, at least, unless the insurance policy said otherwise or the decks said otherwise, there was a law like exactly the air in the middle of the wall between the exterior fascia and the interior drywall, that center period is, the homeowner's master policy covered this portion. And then sometimes it talked to whether that included the paint. Like, it was insane. And what was considered a fixture, because the certain fixtures were covered by the master policy. So when the unit was originally sold, the cabinets were a fixture. What if the cabinets have been replaced and upgraded? And the master association didn't know that. So it got crazy. So actually, I have a lot of experience with that kind of stuff.
Micromanagement mayhem.
Yeah. So that might be something I end up doing. It can't be worse than politics. Famous last words. I heard dog kennels are the worst, though. They're a bunch of bitches. That's what I heard.
Well, it's better than cat kennels.
Oh boy, but I'm telling you,
they're a bunch of.
Yeah. Sylvia does work with dog clubs. So now that, so most of that's probably not of interest to most of our listeners, except to know that if you're interested in parliamentary practice, you can do it full time. You have to work it. Like, you have to want to work it, but you can do that full time.
Work it.
And I think I don't know if I could ever drum up enough business to do it full time, but it certainly would be a nice retirement gig.
Side gig. I think part of it is a function of where you're at, what other, I'll say it this way, competition is out there, and what demand is there. I mean, it does all those pieces that come into play, like anything, like any other business.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, if I found myself unemployed again, just because of the job market and whatever, I might try my hand at just transitioning into that, you know. But
I've actually been thinking about it once I get my cert of also adding a notary certification to it too.
I took the notary class in Colorado, but I think it's expired now. In law offices, they like the paralegals to be notaries.
Yeah,
E-notary's the big thing now, though, doing it over Zoom.
yeah.
But I
It's
just never.
it's a nice little side gig to have. Also, my mother did it for many years before she passed away, and we have friends in the party even out there who do it, and it's extremely helpful sometimes.
Yeah, I probably should renew that. If I wasn't working, I probably would, because you got to hustle. All right. So we discussed, I think, was there anything else you wanted to add about tonight? Then we're going to go to this one of the weird questions. So I figured each week we'll do at least one of the weird questions. Because typing this, oh my God, it's a wall of text. We've got it for you guys. Are you ready
little background on this.
Okay.
Just so people are aware of what's going on. I came across some sample exam questions online. I started looking through them again. And a couple of these questions that they come back with some citations on some things, and I totally got them totally botched. And a couple of them I totally disagree with. And that's what we're looking at right here is what these questions were and what they said they were. And at the same time, to discuss why I think they're weird. Maybe I'm wrong, but let's bring them up for some discussion.
Because so when I first read your answers, I agreed with your answers. So we were thinking alike. But then when I saw what you said, the master key said, and the references, I think I came to the other side, at least on most of them. I think there was one I didn't. And I took it more as, oh, I learned something. Like there were some references that they made that I didn't even know was in there. I was kind of surprised. So we're going to pull up the first one. You're not going to see our faces because you'll see why in a minute. There's a lot of text, but I'll read it out loud. Oh my God, look at all of this. So here's the question.
And they were all like this, folks. So
yeah. So the bylaws of the Horse Enthusiasts of Deptford, which adopt the current edition of RONR as its parliamentary authority, provide for regular meetings of the members to be held on the first Tuesdays of January, March, May, September, and November. The bylaws contain no provisions related to notice of regular meetings. Is notice of these regular meetings required? So the four answers are A, yes. Since the bylaws do not specify a particular number of days' notice, it must be sent 10 business days before each regular meeting. And we're going to go through each of these answers. I'm just going to read them first.
Yeah.
B, notice of the September meeting is required, but not of the regular meetings. C, no, because the bylaws inform members when the regular meetings will be held. Notice of meetings is not required, although in many organizations it is provided nonetheless. D, notice must be sent a reasonable time before each regular meeting. This, I think, is a very tricky-dicky question. So what was your answer?
Oh, I gotta find where I sent this to you.
I think you said C.
Hang on, I gotta find it here.
I'm looking on my phone where you sent it to me.
Is this computer being stupid on my display?
I got it on my phone. Let me see here. You said C. Okay. And that's probably what I would have said. So, and I'm going to say why, but they say the correct answer is C, and we're going to look that up because they cited certain things. Your argument was because
hang on.
You want me to give your argument, or do you want to give your argument?
Hang on. Now I found it. I'm like, where the hell did I put this thing? Okay, here's what they say it's B, and I said it's C. And they cited the 9.3 and 9.7
But first
about
say why
notice
you
being,
said it was C.
because the bylaws already indicate when the meetings are to be held. That would, to me, that serves as notice as I put it here, well in advance, possibly years even, of each regular meeting separated by more than a quarterly time interval, including the September meeting. If the bylaws say that meetings are being held that far out, you've already hit your notice requirement, as far as I can tell on that one.
And so
So
they said B,
yeah,
citing 9.3 and 9.7. So do you want to go through those?
yeah, I'll read it off here. Is that in front of me? 9.3. In any organization, notice must be sent to a reasonable time excuse me, notice we sent a reasonable time in advance of each regular meeting that is separated by more than a quarterly time interval, see 9.7 below, from the previous regular meeting. Notice must also be sent a reasonable time in advance of a convention of delegates, not applicable here. In many organizations, a call is sent to all members in advance of each meeting. 9.7. Important rules relating to the continuance of a question from one session to the next depend upon whether no more than a quarterly time interval intervenes between the two sessions. In this book, Roberts, it is understood that no more than a quarterly time interval intervenes between two sessions if the second session begins at any time during or before the third calendar month after the calendar month in which the first session ends. For example, with reference to a session in January, no more than a quarterly time interval has elapsed since the previous session if that session ended on or after October 1st of the preceding calendar year, and no more than the quarterly time interval will elapse before the next session if that session will begin on or before April 30th of the current year.
Okay. Now, Greg brought up a wrinkle that I thought of when I was reading this, and he said he assumes that that this assumes where the members know where the meetings will be held. So that's why, even though I would have said at first, just reading this quickly like a quiz, I would have agreed with you and said C. But where are these meetings going to be held? I think his question is valid.
That is a fair point.
I actually now think the correct answer is D. Because all of the
a reasonable time before each meeting. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it even says that in 9.3. It says okay. Notice must be sent at a reasonable time in advance of a convention of delegates. Oh, actually, before that, in any organization, notice must be sent a reasonable time in advance of each regular meeting that is separated by more than a quarterly time interval. But it also says in many organizations, a call is sent to all members in advance of each meeting.
Yeah, it's only saying notice has to be sent a reasonable time if it's more than a quarter between each meeting. I would say okay if if they already have all of the information for the ones that are less than a quarter. But right now, you know the date. This is kind of like the Colorado bylaws. It's so first Tuesday, January, March, May, September, November. But where?
Yes.
In Timbuktu? What time? So I think the answer is D.
It very well could be a fair. That's a fair, legitimate point. I mean, about the where.
It'd be different if the bylaws said that the regular meetings are on these dates at this time at the headquarters, though I know that is something that's not recommended by Roberts. If you go to the bylaws section, it says, and we can do that. It says it's a good idea to set like the date, but not necessarily the place, because it could have burned down or something can happen. But of course, that would be a bylaw in the nature of a rule of order. But who can suspend it? If it's of all the members, it has to be suspended ahead of time. So I think the answer is D.
That's interesting because in the chat, Gregory mentions that seems like a new section in the 12th edition. I'm looking at the 11th for section 9 on meetings, and it's been rewritten.
Yeah.
So
This question is definitely, and there's a clue on it by that weird time frame, and that one of
yeah,
the answers mentions the quarterly thing. Anyone who's familiar with Roberts knows that the whole quarterly thing is important. So that was a clue as to where the test makers are going. But if you didn't have that clue, I stand by it being D, because
I'll
otherwise
admit also that the sessions and meetings still give me trouble. So, but that's just me.
I think this is one of those where if we were doing our scorecard, we would put this as a sucky question, because I know what they're getting at. They want you to be aware of that first sentence in 9.3. That's the point of this question. But
that's a new 9.3 and 9.4 are new sections for the 12th edition.
Yeah, I
And then
wasn't
the
aware of them.
9.7 actually was in the previous one. It's on the bottom. If you have the 11th edition, the bottom of page 89. But
yeah, I don't have the
I
11th
was
here
I, was,
with
I
me.
just cross referenced here because I'm like, wait a second, But yeah, because that is a new section there. 9.3 and 9.4 are new in the 12th edition.
Yeah.
So, but some clock says in chat the only logical answers are C and D, regardless of the quarterly garbage. I'm not sure if that's exactly the correct way to put it, but as Gregory says, also increasing participation, transparency, and involvement. D is the safe and correct answer. I tend to agree because that is erring on the side of caution. Send the notice out for each meeting, no matter when the heck it was already set.
Let me tell you what this question is assuming. Now that I know what they think the correct answer is, B, they're assuming, just like there is in Colorado, that there's a special rule of order that establishes the time and the place. That's
which
the
is a bad
assumption
assumption for the question. Yeah.
But if you assume that there is an enduring special rule of order, like in Colorado, that says at 7 p.m. At the Independence Institute, then B makes sense, because everyone already knows the time and the place. But that new 9.3 thing would require notice to be sent. And I typed something wrong. That should say, I think, but not of the rest of the regular meetings, because they're all regular meetings. I think I skipped a word there. So if we import into...
Wait a minute. What do you think you skipped a word on?
B, that answer, because September's a regular meeting too. It seems to separate out September.
You copied it right.
Yeah, well, they messed up, because I think they meant, but not of the other regular meetings, because September's a regular meeting as well.
Yeah.
So I think they messed up.
I think they're trying to claim that because there's a gap there between May and September, that they have to have special notice for that, because there wasn't one in what would have been July.
Right. So if you B would be correct if you presume there is a special rule of order that has already established the time and place, which is what is normally done in organizations that have a bylaw like this. Again, it's very, very similar to Colorado. Ours are more often. So the reason you and I never dealt with this notice thing is because the Colorado bylaws say that the board will meet on the second Monday of every month, period.
Right. It's just laid out there.
Yeah, and we have a special rule of order that says it's at the Independence Institute in Denver at 7 o'clock.
Right. And which gets amended or suspended if you have to change location and time, but the meeting, but the date but the dates don't change. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that was the trick question for today. So it's D if there's no special rule of order, but it would be B, I think, if there is a special rule of order. But
I can
maybe not.
see. I can see, and Gregory's point about location is a great one. I hadn't even considered that. Why C would be a wrong answer. And I can understand why I got it wrong there, but I also think you're right too about D versus B.
Yeah. And I think why you were, and let's go to, now that we don't need to look at this question anymore, why you were going with the bylaws provide notice. This had come up at some other discussion we had where, for a convention at which, and Greg can correct me if I'm wrong in this, because I'm really going on memory. Say you send out your call to convention, and you always put in like this. You want to be explicit just because you want to, at least we do. I've done a million call to conventions as communications director for Colorado when I used to be that. Not that obviously anymore. But we would put, items of business include election of officers, consider of this, and then we would always add in and any other such business as is proper.
Right. And it would also include the where, the who, the where, the when, and all those details. Yeah.
But let's say I forgot to put in election of officers. Does that mean we couldn't? No, because the bylaws already say that, and the members are presumed to know the bylaws. Now, if this was a special convention, that'd be something different, because the only things included in the call can be heard at a special convention. But at a general convention, it's what's in. Yeah. At a general convention, you can bring up new business without previous notice if there isn't a bylaw prohibiting that.
Right. So, yeah, it's a tangled web, but but I can see now from the discussion why my choice of C was wrong, but I also can understand why they're making an assumption of B being right. Part of the problem is this, and this is something that Roberts drives me nuts about. Maybe it's just me not totally understanding it, but they are delightfully vague when it comes to sessions and quarters and meetings, because it's like, well, you say it's a 3-month period. Well, starting when? I mean, if you want to say that
the way they calculate it is where
it's terrible. If you want to say that a quarter starts is the first 3 months of the year, the second quarter is the next 3 months, the way that you would normally expect it, then that would clear things up quite a bit, at least as far as the quarterly intervals go. Fix them to a calendar. But then the session thing, it still gets confusing over meetings and sessions sometimes too, especially when you're dealing with online activity. As we've talked about this offline separately, and that's a real pain in the neck too, which they need to clean up. So Roberts has a lot of work they do to clean things up, and that's just one of them. So some chat going on. Why do we need calls? Because in some societies, especially far leftist ones, there would be secret meetings of political committees. Yeah, the old dark, smoky backroom thing. Yes.
Yeah, well, I'll say that's become a problem in libertarian ones now, now, too.
I recommend less is more in the call, not putting in items in it because of the point made, Caryn. If it gets messed up, it's just a notice of the meeting. Sometimes it depends on what your bylaws say.
Well, I always put and other such business as is proper.
You'll leave it open. Right.
I mean, I'm used to that from being a paralegal. You have your lawyer weasel words that you put in.
Gotta have your gap. Yeah.
But I like putting in as much as I can remember, only because I want to get people there. Like a lot of times we're just sweating, we don't want 10 people electing the officers. So I like to make it clear. And with Colorado, this is important. It's not as important. Well, I'm not going to say it's not as important, but I think it's got a peculiar importance in states like Colorado where we have staggered terms. So I don't put in just board elections. I put elections, chair, treasurer, secretary, the specific ones, because we have very role-based. In Colorado, we don't do at-larges. So
it's called the kitchen cabinet approach, and it's a better way to run the railroad.
I prefer the Colorado model. Though if we got bigger, I think I ran this by you before and you didn't like it, but I'm going to run it by you again. If we got bigger, let's say we had 30 county affiliates.
Wouldn't that be a great problem to have?
It would be a great problem to have. Then I would believe in having a tiered board like they have in Texas, where your board includes your core functional group. That's also your executive committee. And then the full board includes all of the county chairs, and certain decisions can only be made by the full board. And the county chairs are like at-larges almost.
See, that's why I had that 11 region thing going on in Colorado until they took it out a couple of years ago, because
I know you and I fought over that.
It laid the foundation for it.
But we still have the same. We still have the same. I don't know, Boulder. They disaffiliated Boulder, by the way. Not for doing anything wrong. They did it. Actually, I'm going to give them credit. They dissolved, but they wanted to make sure it was really official. Yeah. So they also disaffiliated. But
through that, I understand what you mean.
Yeah, but there's another reason. When Boulder dissolved, they had a bunch of fines with the state of Colorado. So they wanted to make it clear with the state of Colorado. We don't have anything to do with them. So a new group can start up cleanly, because apparently there was a bunch of fines. You could go look it up in Tracer. I don't remember how much it was, but it was substantial from what I understand for not filing reports. Just something stupid.
Yeah, no, I get it. We had to deal with that in California with Santa Barbara County dissolving, because they just simply didn't have the people to stay active to keep it going. So we had to go through all that issue. But
we still only, hold on, I'm trying to remember our affiliates. We've got Arapahoe. We've got El Paso. We've got Douglas. And Arapahoe includes Adams now. I don't know if they did it right in their bylaws, but they are a dual county, allegedly. I don't care. It's not my business. Jefferson.
Considering the metro area, that's not
Pueblo. Denver. Mesa.
So Fremont until it never got going. Okay.
No.
Yeah. There was talk about that before I left, but.
And I've been too busy on the LNC. We want to do a dual county with Elbert, but we just never.
I know you and talked about that. But
yeah, Dougbert.
Yeah. It's a new character for Scott Adams.
Yeah.
No, because but the thing of it is that if you have that's a good problem to have, but at the same time, it's also one of those things where I don't like at-large seats. And I say this having been an at-large when I was on the XCOM in California before I became Southern Vice Chair down there, is that you're basically keeping a seat warm. And there's no defined duties of what you're supposed to be doing. There's no real direction unless the rest of the executive committee provides one. And that usually gets met with some institutional resistance of, I don't want to do nothing. I just want to sit here. And it's not productive. And a kitchen cabinet style where each position has a role, like a communications director, an outreach director, a legislative director, all those things. It focuses on what you're trying to do with the organization. Yeah, there's a trap there that you may not get people qualified for those positions, which may leave them empty for a little bit, or they may not want to do that job. But that's the risk you take in order to sort of specialize in those areas.
Yeah. No, I like Colorado's model.
Legislative and media in Colorado in the past. So, hell, I invented legislative director.
Yeah. No, and our legislative director here actually does fantastic.
Yeah,
even if I disagree with votes, done fantastic with the role.
That's one area where the LPCO is doing a great job, and all credit to them for that.
Yep. I always give credit where credit's due, even though there's things I don't like. On that, they've been doing pretty fantastic. So we've had some really terrible laws that have attempted to go through. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Pew legislation.
A little bit.
Yeah,
I heard about that. I heard about that and the loophole they put in there, which basically turns the bill was supposed to restrict purchasing anything that takes a removable magazine as a firearm, which would apply to practically every semi-automatic pistol in the state and a large chunk of the rifles and a few shotguns. And so they put, because Polis trying to hedge the difference for some dumb reason complained about it. They put a change in there now which requires like a 4-hour training class and a bunch of other stuff attached to make the purchase. And it's like, okay, you just turned a right under the state constitution into a privilege.
And
that's worse.
What it reminded me of, and again, I don't know all the details of this, so I might get some facts wrong. I know the basic contours of the history of the original marijuana prohibition is the federal government didn't prohibit it at first outright. They said, no, but you have to buy marijuana tax stamps. But then they wouldn't sell the tax stamps to anyone.
Yep.
So it was de facto.
That was back in the 40s.
Yeah, so it was a de facto prohibition. It's the same thing where people go, oh, we don't want to ban guns. We just want you to have to buy insurance policies. But then the insurance companies won't sell the policies or they're prohibitively expensive, so only wealthy people can do it. It is a de facto ban. Anyway, we're now getting way more into politics, but it was relevant to a board thing. So I think we're good for tonight, and we'll.
I think we are.
Do you remember what the topic was next week for ParliaPrep?
Let me look. Actually, I do have that in front of
me. And
me.
who the presenter was?
Yeah, it's voting, nominations, and elections. Doesn't say who the presenter is, although it looks like it says submit any questions to a specific email address, or it looks like it says a Dr. Anderson.
Okay. I don't know who that is, but
yeah.
All right. Well, then that's what we'll be talking about. And she said the following week is off, and that might be the week I'm in Pennsylvania, so that will work out. Otherwise, we'll just we'll do some other question. I don't remember how many you sent, but either way, we'll do another one of those trick questions next week too.
Did I send you the picture that I got from the law offices I was in the Friday? Oh, I'll make sure I send it to you. They had for those who aren't familiar with the saga of the gavel with the TSA. Okay, Caryn Ann had an antique gavel, which I found in an antique store out here. Alabama has tons of antique stores all over the place. And I found one, so I sent it out to her. The TSA idiots confiscated it, claiming it was a weapon, which is complete nonsense. So replaced it with another one that was even bigger.
But you forgot the funny part that there was. I had found buried in the same bag a second gavel.
Oh,
it was that generic one that I got from NAP that they didn't find. And I didn't even know it was in there. It was buried on the bottom.
Which is even dumber. Okay. Which is why I put a thing on the forum about being careful about this. But the thing of it is that, and I was over at a law office on Friday getting some paperwork, signed and notarized, personal stuff. And I'll send you the picture, but they had a gavel sitting on a bookshelf below the Alabama law books. And I wouldn't say, let's put it to you this way. If, as we joke sometimes, if you had this gavel in your pocket, you definitely would be happy to see me. It was, for lack of a better case, huge.
I'm going to have to buy one of those shirts of ours. I mean, I've got the Call the Question Bitches one, but I definitely got to get the gavel one. Do you remember? Now we're going back years. I told you I had ordered an adorable little white gavel, and then I put it somewhere and couldn't find it. And that's when I ordered this one.
So I got the acrylic one,
Yeah. In cleaning out my sewing room, I found the white gavel.
It was hiding by your sewing machine?
I thought it was a sewing foot because it was in this little antique box, and I buy antique sewing feet. And they
Wait a minute. You mistook the gavel for what? A sewing foot?
Okay, on a sewing machine.
Help me out here.
What attaches that goes right on top of the fabric is called a foot. And you use different feet depending upon the type of stitch or technique you're trying to use.
Okay.
So there are zipper foots, there are straight foots, there are zigzag foots. But in the olden times, they used to have ruffler foots, seam binding foots, all kinds of interesting, but they're antique. They don't make those anymore. So I used to go on eBay and buy just a bunch of antique sewing feet. And they came in these same kind of very old-timey looking boxes. And this gavel is super old. So it came in a box that looked like the same box that sewing feet came in.
So you put it there thinking it matched up.
Yeah. So here I am straightening up the room and I'm like, oh crap, I kept the box for this. So I opened the box because I thought I was going to be putting away a sewing foot. And there's that ivory. It's not white. It's like ivory. It's gorgeous. I should have brought it down. We'll show it off next show. It's the same size as this one. I like the little dainty gavels.
And you're going, is that where that went?
But this one's old too. It has the date on it. Hold on, I can't. I can't even read it on here now. It's some kind of official courtroom number 54. 1954. Courtroom number 1, 1954. So this gavel is what? I can't count.
70 years old now.
70 years old. Yeah. And the desk I'm here is from 1881.
This one's mine. It's just a generic engraved one. It says "Liberty for Life" on it, which I picked up through Things Remembered a few years back. So,
well, I'll bring down that next one, that other one next week. I don't know. I don't know if it's older than 1954. This one's pretty old.
I looked at that picture. I look at that one on the shelf and I'm going, "Well, that's a gavel."
Yeah. All right, that will be it for this evening, and we'll get together next weekend. And everyone, go check out the Pink Parliamentarian. It dropped today. It's on, and you will probably disagree, Mike, because we've never discussed this. You should watch it. It's on the intrinsically irrelevant negative vote.
Oh, you mean the vote that doesn't change anything?
But still, it says don't ask for it. Don't call for it. Huh. So listen to the show. Yeah, because that could be an interesting topic as well. All right, everyone. Have a good night. And Mike, I'm going to bed, so I'll be hanging up on you after this, but we're going to do the closing music. So bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah, see you later. See everybody.
Fever! Let's hear the opposition side. Like a stubborn donkey's bray. All opposed? You say nay. Opposed! Opposed! The motion carries anyway.